We will start by briefly considering how racism and race-based stereotypes can influence people's experiences in the field. All STEM disciplines, and especially field-based sciences, are disproportionately white, and research shows that Black, Latinx or Latine, Indigenous, Middle Eastern, and Asian individuals experience discriminatory behaviors and a lack of a sense of belonging in science. Racism is ingrained in every aspect of U.S. society, including people's ability to access affordable, high-quality education, healthcare, housing, food, clean air and water, employment, and competitive salaries. People experience racism in personal interactions through microaggressions, active hostility, discrimination, and violence. The historical, societal, and interpersonal context of racism contributes to racial inequities, or the unfair and unjust representation and access to resources in academia and in science. Black scientists, for example, report having their credentials and intelligence challenged at work and being overlooked for promotion.
As a plus size Black person working in the field, people often mistaken who I was in places. So no one ever looked at me and said, "Oh, you're an environmental educator. You're the one that's leading this trip. You're the one who's in charge. You're the education director at this facility." I was often people thought that I worked in support roles, either in maintenance or housekeeping or working in the kitchen. I had experiences where I would be leading a kayak tour and be lined up with 12 kayaks waiting for my participants to arrive. People would arrive. I'd be the only one there. Folks would look around everywhere and eventually come up to me and be like, "Oh, so who's leading our kayaking tour for today?" So like I was never assumed to be the person who was the leader in charge because of my identities. And I can see, in other contexts, how hard that can be, right? I've definitely been in places in the outdoors where people assumed that I was trespassing, that I didn't belong in those spaces because I was not who they would be assumed to be the educator or the scientist in that space. I've also had, experiences just shared with me through my networks of other people of color working in outdoor spaces. And they've been told everything from, that they don't belong there, that sometimes being out on the trail, like, "I come here to get away from the urban element. What are you doing here?" I've been told that I could have access to certain spaces if I wasn't going to do anything nefarious, like go in and graffiti it or do other things. So there just was an assumption based on what people saw as to what I was doing there. And it often was not something that was favorable until they spoke with me and got to know me. And so we have to think about how people's identities might impact. If you're in a rural space where there's not a lot of people that look like you, people may make the assumption that you don't belong there, or that you're doing something nefarious, or that you're trying to do something illegal just solely based on your identity.
Let's talk about how this plays out in the field. In order to keep everyone safe, team leaders and members must educate themselves about how racism can affect people's everyday experiences. Field teams need to consider protection from racial discrimination and racialized violence in their safety plans. In the last few years, Black, Indigenous, and other people of color, sometimes referred to as BIPOC, scientists at all career stages, students to senior scholars, and across disciplines, have been publicly sharing their stories about experiencing racism in the field, and have provided guidelines for ensuring their safety. Racist behaviors don't just make team members feel unwelcome, but also put people at a risk of violence. Black scientists have been threatened with guns or had the authorities called on them while doing their field research because they're not perceived as belonging in the environment where they are conducting their fieldwork, be it in an urban or rural setting. U.S. Latinx Latina researchers report being confronted and threatened by Border Patrol while conducting research near the U.S.-Mexico border. Additional published examples of racism in geoscience field environments are included in the resource section of the Advancing Field Safety Toolkit for this module. To create an environment where the team feels comfortable voicing concerns and where team members come to the team leader when they experience a discriminatory or dangerous incident, the leader must be willing to talk about racism and discrimination and potential risks to people with these identities. Effective strategies include: open the dialogue, listen to people's concerns and stories, believe them and validate what they are experiencing and feeling. This is key to building trust to create a culture of safety. Ineffective and oftentimes harmful responses include questioning the intent of an incident without recognizing its impact, dismissing differences in identities by saying that one is colorblind or that you don't see color, or stereotyping and assuming that everyone has the same experiences based on race or ethnicity. Before going into the field, team leaders should lead discussions with the team to identify discriminatory or racism-related incidents that could occur in the field and lay out a plan for response and protection. Practical recommendations for diverse field teams getting ready to go into the field include: conduct a risk assessment for the impact of racism as part of your fieldwork planning. Consider local cultural norms, language, practices, policies, and laws practiced in field locations that may be discriminatory or disproportionately target people based on their race and ethnicity. For example, many townships across the U.S. had laws or resorted to police violence to maintain white racial dominance for decades. So-called sundown towns forced all other racial and ethnic groups to leave after sunset, and some areas continue to be unwelcoming or dangerous. Do research ahead of visiting an area to ensure it is safe for all of your field team members. Participate in anti-discrimination and anti-racism training to help team leaders identify and learn ways to address potential discriminatory and racist attitudes, nonverbal, verbal, and physical threats that BIPOC team members may experience in field locations. Check with a local college or university diversity, equity, and inclusion office near you to learn about what training programs or online trainings related to anti-racism and anti-discrimination exist. As team leaders, educate yourself about the different forms in which racism can manifest. Create plans to address and de-escalate racist comments or behaviors and protect team members from violence. Field team members should participate in allyship and bystander intervention training to educate and empower all members of the team, especially those who identify with more privileged identities in STEM, such as individuals who are white. Establishing partnerships with local community leaders ahead of going into the field can help build trust between the field team and the community it's traveling to, and improve interactions with local communities while doing field work. Introduce your team and the purpose of your work to local community leaders, businesses, and authorities, especially in predominantly white communities, to help prevent potential negative interactions with locals while in the field. Document all hostile encounters that BIPOC team members face during field visits, regardless of severity. Microaggressions have a cumulative impact over time and have adverse effects on people's sense of belonging and mental health. Team members should address incidents of discrimination when they happen. Team members should use bystander intervention strategies as introduced in Module 4. The team should have a plan for how to address harmful behavior and exit dangerous scenes where physical harm could occur. A field team should make sure no field team members are out in the field alone. Though not exhaustive, these are just some measures that you can take prior to bringing people to the field from varied racial and ethnic minorities. In the next lesson, we'll explore Lens 2, Gender and Sexual Orientation.